Hey Cyclone fans, welcome back to another episode of Cyclone InCYders. I'm Matt Van Winkle. He's Andrew Schneider. Got a lot to talk about in this episode. We're going to break down the win against Iowa. We're going to preview the Western Illinois game. And we're going to talk with Cory Weaver. He writes for the Iowa State Daily about the volleyball team. We're going to talk about how they've started this season. But let's get right into things. We've got a big show. Dean Berhow-Goll, he joined us last week to talk a little bit about the Iowa State-Tulsa game. Dean, a big win for Iowa State over Iowa in Kinnick. First win there in 10 years. What a big win for the Cyclones.
It wasn't pretty, but no, they got the job done. They did enough, and Iowa did not do enough, I guess you'd say, to lose the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great game. Not well played in the red zone by Iowa State, which really was the big story. Missed opportunities is really what comes to mind for me. Late in the game, though, Jake Knott seals it up. What were kind of your thoughts of the game overall?
Overall, you see Jantz go 5 of 5 on the opening drive and hits Aaron Horn for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Immediately, we were thinking, well, here's Jantz. He's back. Yep. He's back to his self from the Tulsa game. And then, second quarter, he goes 9 of 16 for 100 yards. He has that pick. It kind of slows down. They kind of muck it up a little bit. Yeah. Initially, I was very impressed with Jantz, but down the stretch, the Iowa defense, they made adjustments at halftime. You mentioned that they made some changes. They went to press coverage. They ran more stunts and things like that. And he just, Rhodes specifically called me out because I said that Jantz got rattled in press conferences.
I
he called me
that,
out. And I just think that the Iowa defense made good adjustments is really what it was. But the Iowa State defense made better adjustments, really, and just they shut them down.
And if you look at Steele's numbers, he really actually had a good game. Don't look at those interceptions. If you throw those out the window, he actually had a pretty good game with that one touchdown early on. Pretty good numbers out of him as well, 24 of 36. So we see those the completion percentages really improving for him compared to last year. But those turnovers in the red zone, Steele throws a pick. In the end zone, or not in the end zone, but in the end zone in the third quarter, targeting Aaron Horn, and that's when I kind of thought momentum was going towards Iowa's side.
He said that he thought he looked off the linebacker, and when he looks back on it, it wasn't even close. It was almost like they were allergic to the red zone, or to the end zone. Yeah. They have that the fumble exchange between James White and himself, and it was just I don't know what it was. Maybe because the defense gets compacted down in the end zone when you get down there. That's how it works. But he struggled so mightily when they got inside the 11-yard line. There's 3 turnovers inside the 11-yard line. If you expect to win a game against a good team in the Big 12, like a Texas, a West Virginia, or a Oklahoma State, you're not going to win games when you do that.
But of course, Iowa State has, on the other side of the ball, certainly really bailed them out this week. The Iowa State defense, of course, played one of the better games they've even played under Paul Rhodes against an Iowa offense that some may say wasn't as good as they have been in years past, but really, despite 4 turnovers by Iowa State throughout the game, really just a solid game shutting down Iowa's offense.
The first thing that Jantz said when he came into press conferences was he said he had 2 things to say. He wanted to thank God, and then he wanted to thank his defense. And rightfully
did the right
so.
thing, yeah.
Rightfully so, because they saved his rear end time and time again. Specifically, I think of, you have obviously the Jake Knott interception. At that point, we actually got to go down on the field, and I was about 20 feet away from it, and I was just floored. Yeah. If Vandenberg throws that ball 5 feet higher in the air, we're talking about a whole other story here. But the goal line stand certainly comes to mind.
Huge.
They got that play reversed. They got a fresh set of downs from the 3. Enormous stop for the Iowa State defense. I thought that was the series of the game that's what won it for him.
And you really can't ignore Jack Wes Washington's with his interception there that was in the first half as well. Just all around defensive play, really, that included great play once again from the secondary carried over from Tulsa, but also those linebackers once again, just one of the big strengths for this team.
He praised Jeremiah George again, and I talked about it.
You're a big Jeremiah George fan.
I'm a big Jeremiah George fan. I love the guy.
Yeah.
On the goal line stand, second and goal, they run a stretch play, shoots the gap, takes down Damon Bullock, and then later in the game, C.J. Fedorowicz, their big tight end, if George doesn't deflect that pass, I believe it would have been a touchdown. And so I thought that was one of the plays of the game.
Yeah.
But overall, the defense played so well. Vandenberg may not be, a top-level quarterback that Iowa State will see this year in the Big 12, but Jacquez Washington, Paul Rhodes praised him in press conferences. He said he's not a 4.55 guy, referring to the 40-yard dash for those of you that didn't quite catch that. But he says he's a 4.7 guy. But that's the type of mentality that these players have. They're smart. They may not be the most athletic. They may not be 4- and 5-star recruits, but he coaches them up. And that's exactly what we saw from Jacquez Washington. You know, he's playing in deep safety, comes over, makes that pick, made a lot of big tackles, and that's just the mentality that this defense has.
Yeah, and let's talk about that defensive line really quickly. Didn't have any sacks on Vandenberg at all. There were no sacks in the game at all, but they did put a lot of pressure on him, and I think that's really what set the tone for that defense. They did a good job stopping the run, did a great job putting pressure on Vandenberg, causing those interceptions. And let's go back to that not play really quickly. Probably one of the best plays I think we're going to see out of an Iowa State defender this year, especially, I think, what did Rhodes say? That legends are made in games like this and not made like a legendary play or something along those lines. Just an unbelievable play by Jake Knott.
I wish I had the quote in front of me because I would quote it because it was. I literally just smiled and had goosebumps when Rhodes dropped down. He compared Jake Knott. He compared that play to a play that Darrell Revis made, Jets cornerback, when he was at when Rhodes was at Pittsburgh. And he said, great players, make those plays, and Jake Knott made that play. He said, back and forth game, number 20 went out and won the game for us.
Yeah, and he was awarded today, actually, on Monday, as the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. So big honors for Jake Knott. Continues to lead the team in tackles. AJ Klein right behind him, and got those NFL scouts looking at him. He's continuing to play probably the best football, I think, of his career, and I think that pays a testament to how in the offseason he really improved in the weight room, got a lot bigger and stronger, and I think he's feeling as good as he ever has.
You see those NFL linebackers, a lot of them. Patrick Willis, he may not be as big as a lot of NFL linebackers, but they're so fast nowadays. But it's interesting to think about, will Jake Knott or A.J. Klein be able to make that jump to the NFL? You see Luke Kuechly from Boston College go to the Panthers in the first round. He was just a tackling machine, much like Klein and Knott are.
Well, and it helps that Knott is also healthy this year. You can't discount the fact that last year he played through injury after injury. And really this year he looks healthy, he looks faster, he looks stronger, as Matt alluded to, a lot of that weight room work. And it really helps, too, that the defense behind him, you lost those two seniors in the secondary, but they still look strong behind him. And up front, they say they go 10 deep, and they might not be the most talented, but they're very solid just all the way around on that defense.
The way that defense seems to be evolving is they go to that hockey-style lineup on the defense, on the defensive line. And the way that Iowa State's able to switch from their base 4-3 to their nickel gives them so much versatility when they have a guy like Jeremiah George, who I love, in the middle, who's so much more athletic than their middle linebacker was last year. And then you can go to the nickel, and you have a guy like Deion Broomfield and C.J. Morgan who can play that style of a linebacker that plays like a safety.
And Andrew talks about that secondary, and I'm looking back at this Iowa game and looking at how many balls they broke up. 5 balls. And a couple of them came in that fourth quarter when Iowa was driving down the field. They had just come off that pick-off chance in the red zone, in the end zone, and he's driving them down the field. He got a penalty, sets them up for better field position. And I think it was Darrell Givens who, on a play down the right or the right sideline, made a huge play, got way up, just got his hand up there and knocked the ball out of the receiver's hands. Just an unbelievable play.
And that's what Rhodes says he wants. He wants that from his defense. I asked him, I said, do you want that aggressive style? Because there were missed plays where they missed, they jumped on post routes where they were beat. But at the same time, they made so many deflections, like you said.
Yeah.
I'll mention Jeremiah George again. That would have been a touchdown. If we had the replay, we'd show you. He had 20 yards in front of him, and he would have scored. Darrell Givens has that play. You have Jacquez Washington that makes that play. That's the type of secondary he wants. He wants them to be aggressive.
Do you think this team, and we'll get to next week's game here in just a second, but do you think this team, just with the way the offense is able to at least move the ball, in the first 2 games it looks like they have just been able to move the ball better than they did at any point last season, and you couple it with a defense that looks as good at least as last year's team, how far do you think this team could possibly go?
Well, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but they're dangerous. I feel like they are more dangerous than last year. They are able to spread the ball so much more than last year. It just seemed like it was the Darius Reynolds on the outside show, Lenz in the slot, a few quick passes that they still run this year. But he's able to spread it out. He hits Ernest Brunn, the other tight end. He hits his running backs. Hammerschmidt, thank you.
Ricky Howard.
Ricky Howard. He plays as the H-back.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, how deep they go at tight end. It's just unbelievable.
Right, and they don't just run those quick passes either. Jance, now that he's been playing the way he is, they're able to open it up more. You saw in the second quarter he took a lot of shots. Another point is that we could have seen ourselves a 30-10 game. If Jans completes a few of those passes, even one or two, we're talking about a 2 or 3 score game because he missed them flat out.
I think we're ignoring that fact that Iowa State really should have won this game by more than they did. Had so many, like I said, missed opportunities. They should have had an early lead at halftime. You know, once Arceo missed that extra point, though, I go, oh God, here it goes again. And then he misses a field goal as well. It was a pretty long field goal, though. I think it was 45 plus, 57 yards. So pretty long field goal out of him, and he just missed it, I think. But missed opportunities by Iowa State. I think they really need to clean those up as they go into Western Illinois, which we'll get into in the next segment here. But let's touch one more time on the running backs. Rushed for over 100 yards in this game collectively, but I really wanted to see a little bit more out of Chantrell Johnson. He had that one fumble, which was a really nice defensive play, I'll add. But we did see, looking at the replay, that his knee was down. I had a pretty good shot at it down the field. But Chantrell Johnson, I think we're going to want to see more out of him against Western Illinois.
I certainly think that his performance doesn't take away from what kind of a player he is.
Yeah.
You know, I think you have to give credit to the Iowa defense. They adjusted at halftime to put the clamps on Jans.
This game was about the defense. That game.
It was a defensive battle, you know, and I think that that they forced Iowa State to try to shove that running game down the throat, and Iowa's defense, they made adjustments just as equally good as Iowa State did.
So here we are. Iowa State's 2-0 again, just as they were last year, coming off that win against Iowa. Got an FCS opponent. We're going to talk about that coming up after this break. Dean Berhow-Goll is going to join us again. We're going to preview the Western Illinois game coming up right after this. You're watching Cyclone InCYders.
It's a great victory. Very proud of our kids. Two teams that just hung around, persevered, waited for the opportunity to win a football game. Number 20 decided to go win the football game. Just a phenomenal football play. Dave Wanstead said, we were playing West Virginia, and he said, these are the games that legends are made in. And a guy by the name of Darrell Rivas had a punt return in that game that was a phenomenal football play. Jake Knott made that kind of play in a series that will have him go down in history for that play he made. Who knows how high he was in the air, what the level of the ball was when he made the play, but to do that after 59 minutes of football with our backs against the wall, momentum clearly in their favor, and then have the presence of mind to settle and find it and intercept it. You don't make better plays than that in this game.
Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. Matt Van Winkle, Andrew Schneider. Dean Berhow-Goll will join us here for the second segment as well. Dean, interesting game to come off of. You go that defensive battle against Iowa, holding Iowa without a touchdown, and now you get to come play a FCS team in Western Illinois. The Leathernecks is their name, for a game at Jack Trice Stadium. It's going to be the first night game of the season at Jack Trice, a 7 p.m. kickoff. It's going to be an interesting one. They're out of the Missouri Valley. They started the season 2-0, so they've got what it takes to win. But it's going to be interesting because we saw what Iowa State could do against FCS teams last year against UNI, and anything can happen really.
Especially with a team like this, especially with a quarterback like Jans that can turn it over in the blink of an eye.
Sure.
You know, I think obviously Iowa State needs to not overlook them, and I don't think many teams at the college level will overlook teams, and certainly it's not like Paul Rhodes is going to allow that to happen.
Right. And this team is led by Josh Hudson at quarterback. We don't really know a whole lot about this team, but to be fair, they're not in the Big 12. They're not a team that we follow normally, but they've got two running backs as well, which is interesting. Colton Ray and Nico Watson, who both have rushed for over 150 yards in the season. So it's going to be interesting to see how Iowa State's going to try to stop that.
I think that they're just going to, kind of line up like usual. We can't speak about Western Illinois like we know exactly what they do, but quarterback doesn't turn it over. High efficiency rating. They got two-headed monster in the running back attack.
We'll call them monster respectively. But.
Right. But I think as long as Iowa State doesn't overlook them and Jans doesn't throw 5 interceptions, I think they'll be fine.
And that's the thing Paul Rhodes said in the press conference today, that they're not going to overlook this team. He feels like you got to look at every team like this the same, and they're not going to ease up at all. Like I said against UNI last year, it came down to the final play. It's going to be a similar atmosphere as well. So Iowa State have 55,000 plus people. a team like Western Illinois isn't going to be used to that, and a team like UNI especially wasn't used to that. But Jake McDonough had a great quote today too. He said that these FCS teams are going into big schools and they're beating them.
Right.
It's not out of the norm. It happens. So really, anything can happen.
Well, don't talk about Oklahoma State and the way they're playing those lower level teams in Division I and FCS. But it's going to be very interesting, like you said. The environment could be similar to what UNI was like last year, especially coming off such a tough win against Iowa, where it was a game that you probably should have won by more than 2 touchdowns, but it's kind of a little bit of a hangover. There could be that effect. What do you think? We're looking at the passing numbers here as well. What do you think Western Illinois can do that Iowa State could be exploited on?
Well, you mentioned it, mentally. Mm-hmm. If I'm Western Illinois' coach, I'm telling my team, look, this Iowa State team just slopped a win against their rival. They're emotionally tired. They're emotionally worn out. Let's go to Jack Trice and let's hit him in the mouth right away. Because what happens if Jance throws a pick 6 right away? Yep. And the crowd's out of it right away? Because you think about it, are there going to be 55,000 people at this game to watch Iowa State play Western Illinois? Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe not.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And you look at the numbers from Josh Hudson, the quarterback from Western Illinois. He hasn't thrown for a touchdown this year.
Right.
He's 27 of 42. He's got 2 interceptions on the year, but no touchdowns. So probably the goal for Iowa State's defense is going to be stopping the run, because I really don't see them probably passing a lot.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think Iowa State's just going to approach this regularly. They see that the quarterback isn't a huge threat. He's not a guy that's going to sling it down 60 yards for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. But it always starts with stopping the run. It always starts with that. You look at Iowa. Vandenberg isn't a first-team All-America, and neither is Damon Bullock. But look what Damon Bullock did in Week 1: 30 carries for 150 yards. Put his team on its back in a sense. Yeah.
So let's look quickly at the receivers for Western Illinois. They got Charles Chestnut, Fredson Salmon, and Justin Morgan. 3 guys that really have similar numbers. They've got about an equal amount of receptions on the year. So it looks like they've got a lot of targets that Hudson can go to. So it's going to be interesting to see how Iowa State handles that Western Illinois offense. Should be an interesting game. Dean, I want to get your predictions. Score and who's going to win it.
I'll take Iowa State, and respectively, I'll take them 35-10. I think that if Jance doesn't doesn't turn the ball over more than 2 times, I think it's at least a 2-score game.
All right, Andrew.
He probably pretty much hit it right in the nose. Yeah. It's going to be one of those 2-3 touchdown games at the very least. If Iowa State's able to clean up a lot of the mistakes they had on offense, the way they've moved the ball the first 2 games, this could get ugly very, very fast for Western Illinois.
I see Iowa State scoring at least 5 or 6 touchdowns in this game. I really think that they're going to come off this sluggish performance at Iowa. I think that being back at home is going to help a lot. We saw this team against Tulsa, and offensively they looked great. I think what I saw from the Iowa State defense against Iowa, I think they're going to hold them to at least 1 touchdown, maybe a couple field goals here. So I'm going to go with a score. Let's go 49-10. I think this is going to be an absolute blowout. Based on what I've seen, just looking at paper on Western Illinois, they've had wins against Butler and Indianapolis. They've only won by a couple scores, and those teams aren't much to brag about either.
And you might want to be careful just a little bit with that prediction. They do have those 2 running backs, as we talked about at the top of the segment, that could milk the clock. So maybe Iowa State won't be hitting as many points as a typical blowout, but I think you'll see Iowa State clearly be the dominant team physically, talent-wise, and, of course, experience-wise.
I think that's a great point, Andrew. I think that this Western Illinois team probably will try to slow down this Iowa State offense and do the same thing offensively, try to just run it and slow the clock down.
I caution Iowa State fans because, what happens if Western Illinois puts the first score on the board and Jance throws an interception?
Yeah.
We, as fans, be prepared for a slow start. That certainly hasn't been the case the first 2 weeks with Jance being absolutely wonderful the first 2 weeks, but don't be surprised if Western Illinois comes in here and tries to muck it up and make it a sloppy game like it was last week.
You heard it here first. Watch out for Western Illinois, Dean. All right, so we've all got Iowa State in this one, so no secret that this game is going to be interesting. It's at 7 p.m. kickoff. It's only on Cyclones.tv. Can't catch this one on regular cable. It's at 7 p.m. at Jack Trice Stadium. Hope to see you out there. Next, we're going to be joined by Cory Weaver of the Iowa State Daily to talk a little bit of Iowa State volleyball. You're watching Cyclone InCYders.
Yeah, it's been pretty grueling. Last week was a lot of matches. gotten a lot of 5-setters. So it's been a little grueling. Reflecting on last week, of course, we're always happy to beat UNI in Iowa. That's important, and those are very important wins. But obviously, incredibly disappointed with the loss to Syracuse, and don't like the way we played. I haven't liked how we played since we left Illinois, and we've got some issues we got to figure out. I always go back to how are we training? What are we doing as coaches, and what aren't we doing as coaches? And defensively, we are not very good right now. We're not blocking balls, and we're digging, I think, 3 less balls per game this year than we have in previous years. So that's significant. So we've got to go back to practice and figure out how, what are we not doing when we're training that we're not digging more balls in matches. So we'll go, we'll work on that and address that. And then, I think Big B's been huge for us. She's getting a lot of kills for us. Tanisha Matlock has been producing a lot, but after that, we're not getting a whole lot of offensive production from some of the other people. So again, we've got to address some of those issues in practice. So I think the bones are there. I think we've got talent, but we've got to figure out how to get after it and dig more balls. We've got to block more balls. And then we've got to get more offensive production from some other positions other than Big B and Matlock. And that's something I know will improve. We can work on that and address it. But those are the areas I feel that we really need to get better at.
Welcome back to the third and final segment of Cyclone InCYders. Going to switch things up from football now. We're going to talk Iowa State volleyball now. And Cory Weaver joins us. Cory is the beat writer for the Iowa State Daily. He covers the volleyball team. And Cory, an interesting week last week. The Iowa State team starts off 3-0 with big wins against Iowa, UNI, and Eastern Washington, but a tough loss against Syracuse to end the week.
Yeah, it was one of those matches that nobody really expected to go the way it did. I mean, from the very beginning, Coach Christy Johnson-Lynch said they didn't look like the team that they'd been all season, and they'd had some bumps in the road already, but nothing like they played this weekend against Syracuse. They were missing easy digs. They were getting confused with whose ball was whose. They didn't really know where they were all supposed to be on the court. And then just to top it all off, Jamie Straube didn't play very well at all. She sat the entire 5th set. So it was just kind of an atypical match from start to finish.
And that was one of the matches that went 5 sets. And that's the 5th time this season already that this team has gone to 5 sets. So it speaks a little bit to how tired this team might be getting. Might be a little bit fatigued. Jamie Straube had a good quote today that she said that we're not just getting physically tired, but we're getting mentally tired as well. So that might be also having something to do with their poor play as of late.
Right, and when they play teams like Eastern Washington, teams like Iowa and Syracuse, those are teams that they should be beating in 3, if not 4 sets. There's no reason those should be going 5 with the type of caliber team that Iowa State has. And so when you go 5 sets in one, you're tired for the next one. You go 5 sets in that one, and once it gets to the 5th set, you never know what can happen. Anything's a possibility once it gets to that point in the match.
Yeah, and it's no secret that Christy Johnson-Lynch really stacked the schedule this year. Really wanted to see what her team was all about early on in the season. I think she might be getting a little bit worried now that how tough of a schedule she did set up for her team. And it doesn't get any easier as this Saturday the team takes on Nebraska for a big match, Cory.
Yeah, the #1 team in the country, Nebraska, comes to town. Since Christy Johnson-Lynch got to Iowa State in 2005, they have never beaten a #1 team. And as far back as the statistics go on the athletic department's website, they've never beaten a #1 team in the history of Iowa State volleyball.
Yeah.
And then to top it all off, they're a career 1-80 against Nebraska for the program. So Nebraska in itself is they've established themselves as a powerhouse. They've got some really heavy hitters. They've got some tough blocks that Iowa State will have to face. And coming from matches where they had to take Iowa to 5 sets to beat them and then lose to Syracuse in 5, I mean, it's like they're going to have to play a completely different volleyball match in order to stand a chance against Nebraska.
And speaking of that right now as well, let's focus a little bit more on the actual physical performance of the team here. And really the struggle, and I was at that Iowa match on Friday, has been the defensive block and the blocking for the team. That up-the-middle defense that works so well for them going to the postseason just isn't the same this year. And it's kind of surprising as you have Matlock and Straube returning.
Right, and that's Christy said she's just as surprised as anybody that the block hasn't been there. That's something that they've been working on since the beginning of the season this year, and even in the spring last year they were working on that. And Christy can't figure out why it's not there. I mean, they don't have the height that some teams have, but they have the athleticism, and they just, for some reason, haven't been able to master that. And that's what really got them against Iowa and especially Syracuse. Syracuse had a lot of heavy hitters, and, you know, every time Syracuse would go up for a kill, it seemed like more often than not it would fall between Iowa State's girls in the net. So, you know, when you're blocking like that and you can't get points that way, you're really digging yourself a hole.
And there was an interesting conversation at the interviews today where Tanisha was talking a little bit about the impact of the freshmen and how it's different from last year, where some of the upperclassmen and the communication that they had isn't the same. While you've had big contributions from both Bigby, Hudson, as well as Nolan and Malloy, all have been really talented so far, but it looks like there might be a little bit of miscommunication out there at times.
Yeah, and, you know, you've got Hudson, who's normally a setter, who's playing back row. You've got a lot of girls who are kind of, Malloy's a setter / outside hitter. She's been playing a little bit of both. I mean, a lot of them are just kind of playing out of their normal groove, and so they're having to learn not only how to fit into this new position, but how to fit into it with a Division I volleyball program. And so I think, like Tanisha said, they just don't have that chemistry yet of knowing where everybody is and knowing whose ball is whose and when you need to get out of the way for somebody else to go after it. So I think that definitely plays a role, but at the same time, Christy got these players because they were some of the best players in the country. And a number 6 recruiting class should theoretically be able to, you know, figure that out and get that going pretty quickly. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to fix those issues early on here, or if that's going to be a struggle as the season goes on.
Now, and we talk about the defensive struggles from the team, but let's also look at the offensive struggles. And Jamie Straube also struggling a little bit offensively. I know Christy really wants to see a lot more out of her this year. And I think she was really just saying a lot of it gets to her head. I think she's a little bit trying to do too much. You know, she's the senior this year. A lot of freshmen contributing, and she feels like she needs to pick it up a little bit. Right,
and it's just the classic case of the senior who wants to be that leader and be the girl that everybody can go to when they need a big point. And, I mean, she does that too, and she can be, like Christy said, one of the best middles in the country. But at the same time, volleyball's as much of a team sport as any, where you can't just rely on that one player, and you can't rely on one player to do absolutely everything for you. And Jamie, I think, realizes that now, and realizes that, I mean, if she can't do that against a Syracuse team, there's no way she's going to be able to do it against Big 12 competition or Nebraska. So I think she realizes that, and, you know, from this point on, we'll see a different approach to her. She'll still be going after it and still be, you know, giving it 100%. But at the same time, you know, she knows her place and knows what grounds she has to cover.
Do you think this week break is really going to help them, you think? I mean, they've been playing so many, as Matt alluded to earlier, those 5-set matches. Preparing for a number 1 team, are these extra days, do you think, going to help them at least having a chance against the number 1 team?
I think it will, but at the same time, Nebraska's in the same boat. Granted, Nebraska didn't have to play 2 5-set matches this past weekend, but at the same time, they have an entire week without anything in between before this game on Saturday, this match on Saturday. So I think they're both going to be kind of going into it refreshed, but I definitely think that these 5-set matches that they've had have kind of showed them that they can't be doing that against the top team in the country or, you know, the Big 12 competition that they'll face. But as long as they're able to just kind of get back to what they know how to do and get back to their routine, it should be a lot more competitive match than what we saw this weekend.
And we've seen a lot of contributions already this season from freshmen. Some freshmen that we really didn't expect to see play this year. Janelle Hudson, one that got to play this weekend. We talked to her a little bit today. Chrissy just told her this past weekend, you know, she asked her if she wanted to play, and she said, yeah, why not? She was thinking about redshirting her, and that's this big freshman class they've got coming in. So many people that you could potentially redshirt, but the way this team's struggling right now, they really need that help from those freshmen. And Mackenzie Bigby is also one of those players that's helping out.
Right. And the interesting thing about Hudson, I think, is at the very beginning of the season, when they played Tennessee, when they played Cincinnati, Florida State, Illinois, she didn't play in any of those. And every time we asked Christy about who was going to redshirt, she'd say she didn't know yet, but Hudson's name always popped up. So it was a really big surprise for me when I saw her come into Eastern Washington, and knowing that, by her going in, she loses her redshirt status unless she, gets injured later on in the season. But she's been one of those players that a lot of the fans get a kick out of because she has that jump serve, kind of that Caitlin Mahoney flashback a little bit. But she can also do a lot of other things. She's kind of a five-tool player in that regard.
And I think that's why Christy decided to throw her in there, because she can do so much and contribute to this team in so many areas.
Well, there's also the fact that they've been playing all these 5-set matches and having such a big, deep rotation. And as you said, the number 6 recruiting class coming into the season, so there's definitely talent there, and you get them all these reps early in the season, and only big things can happen. And that's what this team was. Early last year, they also had some early season struggles, and it wasn't until about early November where they really started clicking, and really started clicking in that postseason, and that's why they got to an Elite Eight. So still some big things to come in a very long season.
And I think we're going to learn a lot about this team against Nebraska. That game's on Saturday at 1 p.m. It's before the football game. So make sure you get out to Hilton Coliseum and watch the Cyclones. Cory, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Cory Weaver, he is the beat writer for the Iowa State Daily. He covers the volleyball team. We'll see you next week on another edition of Cyclone InCYders. Thanks for joining us.